Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Baker, and this is Momma Stories. I created Momma Stories after seeing how impactful sharing stories can be in overcoming the challenges of motherhood. I am where I am today because of the stories of so many amazing, strong mamas, and I want to share that with every mom I can. So follow along to laugh, cry, and be empowered. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. Have you heard about how we are changing the story for moms? Momma Fund is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to providing products, services, and education to moms in need. So check us out at mommafund.org. Welcome back to the show. Our expert for today, Marianne.
Thanks for having me.
Again. So Marianne, could you tell us a little bit? We know you're a sleep consultant.
Yes.
And a doula.
And I have a background in lactation and also a birth doula.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so how many births have you done?
In the day, I would do 4 to 5 births a month.
Wow.
Yep. And postpartum got so busy, I backed off on the birth. So I will do a birth a month and mainly postpartum and sleep consulting and breastfeeding, which is all usually connected anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing that for about the last 15 years. And I got into birth training at Bastyr is what it is now, but Seattle Midwifery School.
Okay.
And I had a friend say to me, I was my niece's birth coach. I'm going to take this training. I'm like, my sister's been bugging me for the last 2 years. She thinks I should do it. I'll take it with you. I took the training and I went, oh my gosh, there's so much I did not know and understand that I wish I had.
Yeah.
So
was your sister pregnant, or why did she want you to take the class?
It was a friend.
Oh, okay.
She was a coach for her niece.
Oh, I see. Her sister.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it now.
So we took the training. My jaw dropped about how midwives see things, how the conventional medicine sees things. And I really realized that the body innately does know how to do things given the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of that class, somebody came in from the postpartum organization and talked about postpartum. I'm like, there's postpartum doulas? Oh my gosh. So 3 months later, I took that training and I've been running full time ever since then.
Wow.
Out of passion and love. My husband's a fireman, so he's gone for days at a time. So I definitely had the flexibility of him being home or being gone and setting my schedule.
Oh yeah.
So,
that makes it
yeah.
nice.
Then I took the lactation training to be a lactation consultant. And being in the Seattle area, we have so many lactation consultants. I decided to not go that direction, but I had the background and go into sleep consulting because I found that was a real need also.
Yeah.
And so I had a physician mom of a 6-month-old breastfeeding every hour and a half throughout the night hire me and say, please help me. I'm spent and I'm afraid to even work as a doctor. So I did that. I was hired for 3 weeks and got it accomplished. And her word of mouth is what got me into getting certified in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, obviously you didn't have kids when you started this. So
I
this
did.
Is you did?
My fourth one was just starting high school.
Oh, that's right, because you said your daughter's 35.
My youngest
I can't do math, clearly.
No, it's okay. My youngest is 27, and my oldest is 35. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel those mother skills have really seasoned me to be the new mom that struggled with the things that new moms struggle with, to really know that being supportive to those new moms wherever they are and greeting them where they are and helping them with what the needs are that they're looking for was really just the gateway to me knowing that that's such a need.
Yeah.
Especially in a transplant community like Seattle, where there's not a lot of grandparents that are in foreign countries or completely out of state.
Yeah.
They're by themselves.
Yeah. And I would say culturally, I don't know if we're bred to be so supportive, because my middle sister, her husband is Romanian. Mm-hmm. And so when she had her daughter, it was very different, the amount of support or just the type of support that kind of just came really naturally to them. Like, oh, you had a baby, so this is what's going to happen. I'm not sure that happens here, or just I would say in our culture as much.
I have I work with many cultures, and I will tell you that many cultures, their families will come and stay for 1 to 4 months to help them through the first few months as a support system.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I feel like sometimes I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. But then also, it would have been nice to sleep
Yeah.
a good chunk of time here and there.
There's pros and cons to everything.
Yes,
for sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I had one colleague joke, doulas are the family without the issues.
That is true.
It is.
I could see that. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And you come in as kind of like this, you're an expert, but you're also not the expert.
Yeah,
I feel like doulas do a really good job, just in my experience, of not so much giving all the answers, but just kind of coming to an answer together.
Absolutely.
You guys are very good at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because your answer and need might be similar, but something else worked better for that other person, and they figured it out by trial and error on their own.
Yeah.
With the bouncing off information. And
I think also just like having somebody there, just so that you can, like being in that postpartum time, like somebody that is an expert, so you do feel like comfortable with them, but also you could start to kind of shoot ideas off of them.
Yeah. Everybody has different goals and what their needs are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sleep obviously is the biggest thing. Like sleep consultant, I think obviously I know you wear many hats, but that is my big topic, because that was what I struggled with the most. And I feel like even today when I say I'm tired, I'm very careful to never say I'm sleep deprived, because I know that I am not sleep deprived. Like if Grayson has a bad night sleeping and I'm tired the next day, I know nothing about what a mom who has a brand new baby is going through right now, because it's just so different. Like there's just no sleep.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
It's a tough curve.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes people are not honest what their first few days and weeks are like, because they feel like they're the only one struggling. And then I know another mom will step out and say, I'm so struggling. I'm not sleeping. I'm really just like spiraling out of control. And then they'll ask for help, or at least their friends will realize that I'm not the only one. At least she was willing to verbalize that, because I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. I think we've talked about this, I think, before and a little bit today, but I think it's shame, right? It's you feel
Perfection.
like you're, this like I'm a mom, I'm supposed to know how to do this and I don't, so I'm broken, or something's wrong with the baby. And so it's just like you're not really realizing that, no, this is just what happens. And it is really hard and dark, and no one can explain it to you.
Yep.
I honestly don't know what it feels like to be sleep deprived right now. Like sure, I could tell you I feel tired, but again, I remember how hard that was, and I still can't remember that.
Yeah.
I still can't really put myself in that space.
It is a blurred time. I've had many moms say that to me. They don't really have a recollection for the first few weeks.
Yeah. I know I've told you, but it is a dark time for me. I try not to go back too far, because I do feel like that was the hardest part, was those first couple weeks. I just remember feeling like, what am I doing? What is happening?
Yeah.
So why is it? I know that there's probably 1,000 different reasons, but like, why don't babies sleep? Like, why don't we sleep as moms? Like, what do you see when you...
Well, newborns' goals are to eat and grow. And sometimes the transition into the feeding challenges can be showing up. The gut develops and starts awakening up at about a month. And so you have a baby that's got fussy periods. Yeah, that's all real stuff. The question is, do you want help figuring out what that might be contributing? Or, for instance, things like a baby shouldn't be awake for 4 hours during the day. They actually need to be awake for very short periods of time. Otherwise, they visually, sound, and touch overstimulate, and then they can't cope with shutting down. That's our job. And then we end up rocking, bouncing, holding, feeding to help them self-regulate, which they don't have that ability for a few months. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know they could be overstimulated so
very
young.
easily.
Okay.
I tell moms in general, newborns should be awake 50 to 70 minutes, and that's from the start of a feed back down sleeping.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And is it something that, like, let me ask you this. So if a baby is awake for like 2 hours or 3 hours, right? Is it
Yes.
something that we are not doing? Like, are we not being like, go to sleep? Or is it just that baby is going to struggle with sleep for some reason?
There's that very alert, aware newborn that doesn't want to be shut to go to sleep, and they don't want to miss the world. And those are the babies we have to go swaddle up, turn on the sound machine, go to the darker room to help them decompress and go to sleep. Otherwise, they don't do it. They don't know how to do it the first 3 or 4 months.
Sure.
They don't have that ability. So some kids just drift off to sleep in a car seat with a crowded room. Other kids just like, I'm awake. This is much. I don't know how to shut off. And then those are the ones you tend to hear from.
Yeah.
It's the alert babies.
And so that's something a mom can see at least and know, okay, maybe I need to start swaddling, dark room,
Some
sound
moms
machine.
don't catch that quite at the beginning.
Okay.
They don't realize that that's what's going on.
Well, and I feel like we talked about it being a foggy time. I don't
Yeah.
remember how much Grayson
Yeah.
was awake. I don't know if that was, I mean, I was honestly concerned about feeding him,
Absolutely.
and he would cry a lot. So making sure I was like burping him or whatever it was that was going on with his tummy. I just, that's what I remember. I don't remember being like, oh, he's awake. Oh, he's asleep. I don't know if my mind could have gone there.
Again, you're in survival mode. You just had how many hours of labor, come home sleep deprived with a newborn, learning breastfeeding, which is a 6-week learning curve in my experience. We're really hard on ourselves that it's not natural. It is so not natural. It is a learning curve for both.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the fallacies about new parenthood is so off, because we think these are all just natural things.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Yeah.
It's learned.
Breastfeeding's a hard topic for me just because it didn't come easy. And I do, when I say it to a mom, so often they're like, yeah, same. Like I had to switch to formula, or I feel like I gave up, or all these things. And sometimes I feel like I'm over it. Yeah. Same with you.
Yeah.
Well, just because you didn't
visceral.
know. Yes. Yeah. But I also think like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm over this. Like I'm good, whatever. Grayson's way past nursing and bottles and all that. But then I see a mom breastfeeding in public. Yeah. Or the other day I saw this mom carrying her son in Costco breastfeeding. And I was like, gosh, if there is like a badass woman, like you're right there. And of course I'm just so in awe. And then I also have a lot of guilt that I feel at that time.
We're good at that.
Yeah.
We're really good at that.
So sometimes I do feel like I'm over it, and then
of course not.
I'm not. I still got to work on that.
Of course.
Because it's just, it feels like something I gave up on, or something I didn't have enough information on as to why it was.
I've been doing
not
this
natural.
for 15 years. My oldest is 35. I still have that feeling after 35 years.
Really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
The woulda, coulda, shouldas.
Yes. Okay. Well, good to know they won't go away, because I have them all the time.
It didn't for me.
Yes. I have a feeling they won't for me either. Yeah. Even like a birth story, you know, like I'm not going to say I had all these plans. I mean, sure, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it with no drugs, and I'm going to whatever. And but I didn't have a doula. There were some steps I should have taken if I was very serious about that path, and I didn't. But when I do see somebody go through such a positive birth experience and have such a good transition back home, or I guess what they're telling me that they had a good transition back home,
Fair.
I do feel really heavy about that, because I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have been more prepared, because I wish I could have experienced that, like a positive transition.
Have 4 babies. Your journey and story will be different with every single child. I don't think it's fair that we as human beings do that to ourselves, let alone to our friends. And it's not that anybody's intentionally doing it. We just have these pie in the sky, not realistic journeys of what the movie looked like for that mom that had 3 contractions and a baby born. That's not normal. Yeah. And that's not typical. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
And those first babies make the way. They tend to be the toughest ones. They're the ones that make the journey. Yeah. For the rest of them.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So they are the toughest.
Well, I do feel really good now, because I feel like Grayson's, although he's like totally in the terrible twos or whatever people call it, like tantrum, feeling all the emotions, like every emotion he feels it. He's a good baby. So maybe my my lack of sleeping for like 10 months was what was supposed to happen so that he could be so good now. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is.
It's funny you should say that. I found that babies that have like really severe reflux, and they're in months of just pain, when things are resolved, they see the world in such a light, like, I'm happy, I'm here. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. I actually still don't know what it was with Grayson that made him so he was such a bad sleeper. But honestly, until he was like 9.5, 10 months, he would be up every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like we just didn't know
Yeah.
what was going on. And of course, he did sleep through the night for like a month when he was like 2 or 3 months.
Really
he started to
typical age.
sleep 6 hours at night.
Yep.
And so my husband and I were like, look at us. Don't tell anybody, but we're rock stars. And we would brag about it. And we'd be like, oh, he's so good. We feel like new humans. We're rested.
Yep.
I was like joining music class. I was like, yes, I'm good. I can do this.
And then
the
sleep regression at 4 months.
It was actually like 3 for us. But oh man, I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
And then it was worse than when before. I mean, literally
Sure.
up every 20 minutes screaming, couldn't, like, nothing. Co-sleeping wouldn't work, nothing.
Yeah.
It was awful.
That's a hard time. That child at 4 months becomes, and it can be earlier, especially for full-term babies, they become very aware, alert, and engaged in their world, which is great during the day. They become very aware, alert, and engaged at bedtime at night too, which has to do with that independent skill of practicing how to fall asleep, which helps interpret how to fall asleep and transition between cycles all throughout the night, like we do without thinking about it.
Because they wake up and then
And they go, hey, last I knew was in your arms. Now I'm in the front yard. Come do it for me again. Unless there's medical reasons, but that's the developmental behavioral part of it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So what can moms do? I mean, obviously hiring sleep consultants, which I want to get into like what that actually would look like for a mom. But what is it that either we're doing wrong or we're not doing enough, or what can we do so that when that 4 months comes?
Sure. I've worked with families from birth till you can leave when they're sleeping through the night. It doesn't matter what you do, quote unquote, right. That regression happens because it's developmental. Biggest goals are how to practice falling asleep at bedtime. That's where it all starts.
Okay.
Feeding well during the day equals sleep at night. So calories in during the day equals sleep at night.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So a well-fed baby sleeps
They tend to sleep better. Yeah. It doesn't mean we're still not going to feed them at night. Depending on what the situation is, it's different for everybody.
Sure.
Not going to bed. Here's the 6 reasons why sleep doesn't happen. To bed too late. To bed too sleepy or already asleep. Inconsistent responses. Poor naps. Medical reasons. Too big a gap from last nap ending to bedtime. That's a big one. Kids need a third evening nap until they're 8 months old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Albeit 30 to 45 minutes, it makes the evenings pleasant. They're still going to go to bed at a reasonable time.
And it's funny because in my mind, when you say that, I think like, oh, but then they won't sleep at night. It's like we're trained to think like tire them out.
Exact opposite.
But what happens when we tire them out is that they get too tired.
Over cortisoled.
Okay.
Over cortisol babies sleep poor, sleep less, early rise, wake up more, cry more at bedtime. We actually want to be in a calm, alert state. The whole drowsy but awake phrase, my phrase is I want them to bed calm and alert, in a good state, not overtired. They may talk, babble to fall asleep. They may cry at the end of it before they fall asleep a little bit. But you're in the sweet spot when they're not going in their crib and they're hysterical. That's a good spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you think part of the reason why they get hysterical or get upset when they go into their crib is that maybe the parents are carrying some tension too that's passing along to the babies?
Absolutely. Children are very intuitive to their parents' energy. And I think there's real truth to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I always think back to Grayson when he was brand new. And I know I've told you this before. I actually can't remember if I've said this on the podcast, so I apologize if you're hearing it again. But when he was brand new, we brought him home and it got dark outside. That was a really hard time for me because I knew what needed to happen, right? I knew sleep needed to happen. And then I also knew he wasn't going to sleep. So there was a lot of anxiety I had during that time because I was like, gosh, well, I'm tired. My body is telling me it's time to go to bed, but you're like wide awake and crying and I don't know what to do with you and all these things. And so sometimes I wonder if a lot of that was on me, like giving Grayson that anxiety because now, not every night, but for the most night, we have a we have a pretty good routine.
Great.
And we started that very young.
Good.
But he didn't work for a very long time. Yeah. But we've kept this routine as much as we can for this long. And most of the time it's like positive and fun and the next step. Right now we're experiencing some regression, I think, because of his transition into being 2, but where he like knows now that he doesn't want to go to sleep. He wants to play with all his toys or whatever it is. So it's harder to do some of the stages, but that does help that routine.
Yep.
And it helped me be less stressed because I knew like something was coming.
Right.
Like there was going to be a nighttime.
Right.
Maybe it was only for half an hour, but at least there was going to be some release.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think anxiety for sure for me went along to Grayson in that time.
Sometimes kids just want to be given permission to learn it. And we don't realize that. We don't catch it. Kids that are in your arms, they're arching back, they're melting down, they're wiggling out of your arms. They're saying, this isn't working for me either. I may not know what you're asking me to do, and I may not know how to do it quite, but this isn't working anymore. And so sometimes it's just a few days of giving them the opportunity to practice it, and they get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they absolutely can sense that sometimes more rocking, bouncing, holding makes it worse.
Yeah.
Because they're overstimulated.
Yeah.
Kids visually, sound, and touch overstimulate. Pretty easy.
It's funny that you say that. I can literally picture times where I'm holding Grayson, like, just like, go to sleep. And he's so mad. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's time to go to sleep. And just that constant bouncing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the like, please don't wake up. Please don't wake up. Please don't wake up. Put him down.
Yep.
Oh, man, the amount of times we did that.
Yep.
But the first time I ever got him to sleep and like had a baby, we didn't have a baby monitor for a long time because Grayson just slept on my chest for many, many weeks.
Yeah.
Which I know is not ideal, but
was that by choice or default?
it was
For survival.
yes, I would say. I don't know though, because I do feel like I had too much anxiety to put him away from me. I needed him to be by me. So maybe for survival for both of us. And I love the idea of co-sleeping. Like if I had another baby, I feel like I would co-sleep 100%. But I also had I felt like I had a lot of pressure. People telling me he needs to be in a crib. So I was like, he needs to be in a crib. He needs to be in a crib. But I like couldn't do that.
Right.
And so both, I think survival and also guilt and all sorts of things. But I just needed to sleep. And so we had a recliner on a couch. And I think for like 8 weeks, I slept in that recliner with him on my chest.
But it worked for you. I mean, I think you have to be very careful to pass judgment on somebody else in their ways.
Sure.
Because then that makes them feel like they're doing something wrong and guilty. If it's working, it's fixed.
And I think that's a really good point, because I would say if I could go back and have Grayson sleep on my chest for a whole night, I would do it right now in a heartbeat, right? So obviously I wish I could have gone back and been like, this is so great. Yeah. I do think it was probably a lot of things I was dealing with that made it not feel so great. Yeah. But you're right. Again, I would co-sleep in a second. I would do it differently than how I did it, because sleeping in a recliner isn't good for your back for a long time. But
I've had people have multiple children and bed sharing worked for one or two of them, but the other ones it didn't. It depends on the child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of fear too of what co-sleeping can bring.
Yep.
And when you are a new mom and you're going through postpartum, trying to eliminate fear is better than trying to maintain some idea of what you thought motherhood was going to be like.
It's so true.
Because if you like pile it on, then you're just going in like a drain, right? Circling the drain of like, what am I going to do if I can't do this?
Right.
All right. So when we, as a mom, are going through this like terrible time, I didn't know you existed until very late on and having Grayson, which is when I contacted you. But so a mom is having a brand new baby, how can they prepare to like have some more postpartum support?
So I've had moms, repeat clients, send me a picture of their pregnancy stick and said, don't book anybody else. I've had moms call me pregnant and say, is it too soon to reach out to ask for your help postpartum? And then we have families that honestly thought they would do fine, and it was pretty rough, and they reached out after the baby was here. So there's really no one set way.
Okay.
It's just whatever you feel, it's finances and it's
Sure.
family support and it's your personality and the baby that you're given. Because sometimes the baby you're given is not what you expected.
Yeah. And it might be your second and it's different than what
Yeah.
you experienced.
So
Okay.
ideally to talk to some people, get some help potentially lined up, even if it's first 4 6 weeks in the transition time of the feedings and understanding. It's just a good short-term help.
Yeah.
For sure.
So do you ever have a client where you come like the first day?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Or if there's multiple kids, we'll come stay at the hospital.
Okay.
So dad can go home. Oops, sorry about that.
That's okay.
And stay in the hospital and do what a partner would do, just being bedside and helping with different things. Because hospital staff is not really there for that. No. So.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Literally,
that you did that.
if you want us to try to be there when you walk in the door the first night, let us know when you're in labor, just text message. And, we kind of do out the math of how labor's going and find ways to be there when you walk in. I always say if I can't be there for the first night overnight, I will come in the evening till 9:30, get you settled, and then I'll come in the morning and then we'll talk about the next day as far as the next night help.
It's nice to know that also exists because I would agree with you that Dustin and I we really wanted to go home. We were like itching to get out of the hospital. We couldn't get out of there soon enough. But we also were experiencing a lot of like questions and it's hard to get a lot of those questions answered.
Yep.
And I do think Dustin and I could have benefited from some
Well,
sleep.
you mentioned dreading the evenings and nighttime because you knew it was sleeping time and he wasn't wanting to sleep and you were exhausted. I think that's why night help is so important to help you figure out the evenings and the nights with that side support and get a few hours of sleep so you can function during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whether it be 10 hours after you delivered or whether it be 10 days.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's good to get that.
Yeah.
So if you did come to somebody's home and it was in that early couple weeks, what does that look like then? So are you up with the baby at night and the mom sleeps?
There's no one way to do this.
Okay.
It really depends. Some parents are really wanting their baby bedside. I find that usually lasts a couple, 3 nights in a row, and babies can be noisy, and they feel like moms are hypervigilantly listening for the baby to wake up. And they're like, okay, we're done. We need sleep when you're here. And it'll be like, 10 feet down the hall, whether in the nursery or the living room with the baby. And then feeds can be, I find the first 2 or 3 weeks, it's really important to try to support breastfeeding. So breastfeeding support with every feed through the night. There may be bottle supplementation if that's asked or required. Once breastfeeding is established, some moms will continue to breastfeed. Some moms will say, I'll breastfeed the first one, you bottle feed the second one, I'll pump when I feel like I'm full. We'll meet up in the morning. It really depends on what parents' goals are. Some people just want sleep. Milk's in the fridge. I'll pump when I feel like I'm full. See you in the morning.
Okay.
And some moms are like, can you help me every breastfeeding session?
Okay.
So,
wow. I feel like every hospital should send home a mom with that. Exactly. Because it is good to have it customized because it is different for every mom.
Absolutely different.
And obviously you have these like goals or aspirations of what you think motherhood's going to be like and what you want it to be like and what you want to create, which is good to have that support. But you honestly can't do it alone.
No.
You just can't.
Yeah. And I really think if money is an issue, getting support the first week, again, some people say, I need 8 hours of sleep at night. I want help for the first 2 to 4 months until I can get 5, 6, 7 hours of sleep because I don't do well during the day with my anxiety or depression with lack of sleep. And I think that stuff is real.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of depends. Or if, money's a budget an issue, you just have a few nights the first week, really get good up and running information and support and go from there.
Well, I remember telling Dustin when we found out what a sleep consultant was.
But that's speaking of a doula, by the way.
Doula, sleep, yeah. I'm going to keep saying that, but I think I mean all the hats.
Okay.
Just a night, I actually always say like night nurse or night support. But I always tell Dustin now, I'm like, if I have anybody who has a baby in my life, that is what I'm getting them for their baby shower. Like
we've been given before.
Yeah. Because even if it's just one night. It's priceless.
Yeah,
oh my
I
gosh.
totally agree.
Just the one time when you can just sleep and rest and it's not a family member and it's not, it's just like somebody there.
I love those nights because it's literally breastfeeding support every 3 hours. It's, an hour of talking about baby stuff and suggestions and transitions and things to look for that whole night. Mom just breastfeeds and we talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then they glean a bunch and then they're on a better foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just feels nice to have somebody there that you can trust, but then also somebody there that you've hired, right? That so you can say like, these are what I want.
Yep.
I think that's the hardest thing with family members is like when we've talked about Dustin and I, even just like hiring a nanny or like support just in our lives when we've gone through this, and family members have been like, no, I'll do it. I think in my mind, like, but the difference is if I hire somebody, it can be my experience because I can then say, this is what I'm expecting. This is what I want.
Yeah.
And so when you say it's the exact same thing, right? Like maybe I want to be up all night, but I just want someone to walk me through all the questions that I have or
For sure.
help me with this because breastfeeding is really hard or whatever it is.
Right.
But you've hired that person so you can make that experience what you want
Yep.
versus if grandma comes or if sister comes,
Right.
it's different.
Sometimes there's an agenda with family.
Oh, yeah.
I want to hold the baby. No, I want to take the baby to bed with me.
Yes. Yeah, I remember my sister came with her daughter, who's like, she came out of the womb ready to be a mom. She's like a natural mom.
Yeah.
And so she, of course, was like obsessed with Grayson, wanting to hold him, and so her and her daughter were like watching Grayson for us. And Dustin and I got 5 hours of sleep.
That's huge.
And I remember when
awesome.
she woke me up, the plan was just to have a small nap.
Yeah.
And so when she woke me up, I remember feeling like, what's happening? Like my heart was racing. I was like, something's wrong with Grayson. I feel really rested. And I also don't feel rested. Like what's going on? And then I realized, wow, he just survived 5 hours without me. I probably don't have to like wake up every 2 hours and feed him. Like maybe just when he's ready to eat, I could feed him. Yep. And okay. And it was like really a transitional moment for me. Cause I was like, okay, he's starting to like understand that he maybe doesn't eat as much, or maybe I could feed him more or feed him less at certain times. And then I can get these chunks of sleep in. But I honestly didn't know that until my sister came to help.
Yeah.
But then there's also like now I'm nervous because he's with somebody else for 5 hours,
For
right?
sure.
So there's all these like dynamics. But if you
sure.
hire somebody,
And I always tell people with interviewing postpartum help, if it's not me, find somebody you feel trusting and
Yes.
safe with. Because if it's not me, that's okay.
Yeah.
Everybody has somebody that
Yeah.
they connect up with. Because I think that's really important to know that you can go take that nap or sleep at night knowing your baby's in a good place.
yeah.
That's really important.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would say that's what I dealt with the most was that anxiety of being away from Grayson.
For sure.
Like I couldn't be, and I didn't think I would be that mom.
Yeah.
I never thought I would have that type of like separation anxiety.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember in the hospital and people would hold him and I would just like, my eye would watch like, why are we like, can I have him back? Like what's happening?
Yeah.
Why is all these people touching him
Yeah.
when I just feel like I don't even know him yet? Like
Yeah.
I want to know him more.
And I agree with that.
Oh, and that was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard too, like going home when people would hold him, I'd be like, where is he going? What's happening?
This is where that letter comes in that you put out pregnant.
Yes.
That says, we are so excited to share him with you, but we'd like to have our time of adapting to being a new family. If you'd love to bring dinners, we would love that. The cooler's outside with the freezer pack. We would like the first 2, 4, 6 weeks on our own with our baby. And then after that, we would love to have you come meet him
Yeah.
ahead of time.
Yes.
Not in the throes of hurt feelings and you were not letting me hold the baby. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I do think that would be really good, really healthy to get, just to figure it out, right? Like what
For
does
sure.
this look like? And
yeah.
obviously there's some things that can happen in those first couple of weeks. You can find out your
Usually.
son is,
Usually, honestly, it's a tough transition.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, and like you were talking earlier about tongue tied, right?
Yep.
Like those are things that you find out usually and hopefully pretty early with the feeding or lack thereof or struggling.
With the right support. I
Yes.
find people don't catch it. Professionals don't catch it. And then I get the call, my baby's not sleeping. We are having sleeping issues. And I will express that babies under, say, 12 weeks that have sleeping issues, it's usually a gut food issue.
Which relates to tongue tie.
Often, or mom's diet. You can't have 5-star Thai food anymore. You can't have the quad shot of coffee anymore because their guts are not really ready to digest that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was something I didn't know if I could give up. I think with the breastfeeding, when it came down to like, we don't know what's going on, and somebody was like, well, here's everything you have to cut out
Things to think about for sure.
and try this. And I think we did it for probably like 4 days. And then I was like, you know what? It's just not worth it to me.
And everybody has different goals.
Yes. I was like, I can't do this.
That's fine. Yep.
Yeah. It
Yep.
was hard. But I also didn't know that eventually I could have had that. What I saw that was like forever.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be able to have coffee. I'm never going to be able to have cheese.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know is that like, it just temporarily,
True.
a very short, although feeling like a long time,
Yeah.
just temporarily is all you'd have to have.
Yep.
Because that was hard. A breastfeeding thing was hard. What I found though is that people would say, like one person would say Grayson was tongue-tied, and then the other person would say he wasn't. So how do you know?
That is my experience wholeheartedly, and I work with hundreds of families a year. I will tell you that is legitimately true. I find, without labeling any specific professionals, I feel professionals that should be trained in it and should know, don't catch it.
Really?
Or it's a fad, or they dismiss it, or they're gaining weight, we're not going to worry about it. And again, you got to look at the big picture. Are we screaming because we have a belly full of gas? Are we passing a lot of gas? Are we taking forever to feed? Are we falling asleep at the breast? It's not just, oh, his tongue goes past his gum line, he's good. No, there's so much more to breastfeeding. There's a peristaltic wave. There's wrapping around the breast with the tongue. There's so many components to breastfeeding that I find well, let me put it this way. This last year, I had 2 pediatrician moms that contacted me for sleep. One of them I had more an extensive conversation with about that. I felt that that's possibly what was going on. Here's some resources. And she got a hospital scale to see what we were transferring because he was 4 months and only 12 pounds. And my heart broke because I knew he was really underweight. And I didn't know she was a pediatrician. And I said, I just find they're not trained in it and they tend to miss it. I said, and I'll send you to somebody that does this every day and can explain to you. And when I found out she was a pediatrician, I said, well, honestly, I really feel that the profession's not trained. She goes, I totally agree. So her own doctor and herself didn't catch it.
Wow.
He got revised at the end of the week, and in a month she messaged me and said things have changed so much.
Really?
So
why is it that
I'm seeing 30 to 40% of kids tongue-tied. Now, I had a dad say to me, well, yeah, you get the crisis call. I said, no, I'm a birth doula, and I work with families the minute they walk in home, and I'm telling you, we're seeing it, we're recognizing it, but people that have been doing this for like 25, 30 years saying we're seeing it more often now, we think.
Wow.
Epigenetics, folic acid versus methylfolate, conception, mother and father, genetics. Tongue ties are so genetic.
Really?
You know, the husband's or the partner's mom will say, yeah, I never got to breastfeed because partner wasn't, kids weren't gaining weight, and so I just went to formula in the day. So
for us, when Grayson, I wonder if this is other moms' fears too, but when we were told Grayson was tongue-tied, so of course we heard it from, we had opposing views, so that was hard.
And that's common.
Yeah, so we had yes, he was, and then no, he wasn't. And the problem is that the like, yes, he was, is like, oh, it'll fix everything. And then the no, he wasn't was like, you just don't want to do that because it could cause a slur, it could do all these things. So what is the risk?
Bad information.
Okay.
I think all my trainings, and I do 1 to 3 a year, whether it's across the country or local. The myofascial therapist on the East Coast said there's not a downside to doing the revision done right.
Okay.
And when in doubt, it's always to benefit. And I would agree.
Okay.
Now, I have had some people that did revisions on kids that really weren't trained well and it didn't go well. And then a professional that did it right had to redo it. Those are unfortunate stories, not common, but there are people that are in the greater Seattle area that do it really well and know their stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so.
How does a mom find them though, if they're faced with this?
Well, you know, I've really found it's word of mouth.
Okay.
Mom networking is huge. There's professionals that do it and charge an exorbitant amount of money, which I think is wrong. And there's people that do it and take insurance, and there's people that do it that don't take insurance, but they're very reasonably priced and do a really good job and trained with the best.
Okay.
So it's really asking the questions. people are resistant. Nobody wants to do anything invasive to their babies, for sure.
Yeah.
But again, when you see the means to the end, or moms, when my second grandson was revised, I went to the appointment with my daughter because I knew the doctor, and they're swaddling him up and getting to revise him, and I start crying, and I walked out of the room, and the doctor says, "Where's your mom?" My daughter goes, "She's out in the hallway crying." But I know it's the means to the end. And my daughter was kind of my test, really my confirmation. I said, "Stephanie, you're going to need to really tell me what it feels like before, during, and after." So with her first one, she said, "So much better." And then there was some adhering, so we had to redo it. And we went to Portland because that's the only guy that lasered at the time. There's great people in Seattle now. And she said that was the icing on the cake. She did need that second revision. And she breastfed for a solid year.
Wow.
Same with the second, same with the third.
So when I heard clipping, because I don't know what that procedure actually looks like.
Okay, so there's a tendon under the tongue called the frenulum.
Right.
There's different degrees. Some are as obvious, and those are more submucosal, like you've got, yes.
Yeah. I know I'm like playing with my tongue now that you said that.
It's not normal technically to have that.
Really?
Really. I pretty much didn't have one. I always thought I was the odd one. In my childhood, yes.
Okay.
But that affects the tongue's ability to do the smooth suck swallow. And depending how the tongue is functioning, it could also be a lip tie. It could also be the baby needs some cranial sacral therapy and some body work to loosen up tension from the birth, or sitting the pelvis crooked for 9 months. Body work, getting a really good professional opinion with somebody that does it every day is a really good setup for preserving breastfeeding. Otherwise, there ends up being early weaning at 3 to 4 months, 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if a child is tongue tied, would they have the same type of problem with a bottle? Or is it just the nipple?
It's different mechanics.
Okay.
But some kids even struggle with bottle feeding, even when moms have stopped breastfeeding. Bottles can be better and a little bit easier, but it still can be a struggle if they're really tethered.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the risk? Like you mentioned, I have it when I just did. I'm impressed. I don't even know how you saw that from across
Honestly,
the room.
I've been doing this so long. The first thing I do is look at their speech.
Oh, that is funny.
It can affect speech, oral hygiene, chew, suck, swallow, manipulation of food, mouth breathing, snoring.
Even into their adulthood.
Facial growth. Oh my gosh.
Really?
That's my last child.
Really?
She is actually doing all the, what I didn't know, stuff that happened to her from birth was congested feeder, would take forever to feed, always gassy, needed to elevate herself to sleep because she was apneic from birth related to her tongue tie. Now at 25, she's addressing it because we never knew.
Wow.
I was poo-pooed and dismissed by my pediatrician 25 years ago. And I told her this is really important to me because she was apneic. And I said, it's important to me that you do this. And she's like, it's been life-changing.
Wow.
I've had parents go on to get revisions when their children were revised, and they've said, oh my gosh, I don't think about chewing my food anymore. I just do it. Where they used to have to think about chew, manipulate, suck, swallow.
Really?
Really. And mouth breathing. So what happens when you become a mouth breather, if you have a narrow palate, the more mouth breathing you do, the more narrow your airway becomes. It's kind of the domino of it can make it worse over the years.
Wow. I didn't know it was something that would continue. See, I thought if I clipped his tongue, it would affect him in the negative in the future.
No, that's misinformation.
So what would happen if somebody clipped a child's tongue? I know you're not. I know
I was
you're
just
not
going to say,
an
I'm not a
expert.
professional.
No, I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but I do have a question.
Yeah.
If somebody clipped the tongue that wasn't tongue tied,
there's nothing to clip then.
Oh, there isn't.
There's a tendon that tends to be really obvious. Tendon under the tongue, and either it's there or it's not. 9 times out of 10, it's obvious.
See, I always thought everybody just had it.
Right?
And some people's were out further and some were in further.
So more anterior ties, which are to the tip, are like very obvious.
Okay.
Again, every baby kind of has their way of compensating most of the time. Sometimes they can't. Some are really deep in submucosal, and you think, oh, those are not a big deal. Those can affect breastfeeding as much, if not more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
It's crazy to me because I wonder,
When
obviously.
you watch many women breastfeed and you see the child that tucks their upper lip, that's affecting a deep latch. You want duck lips. It can get a fracture.
Because they're saying they could cut up here too.
There's also a lip frenulum, because you can get a shallow latch, you can get lip blisters or friction calluses. That's because they're shallow latched and the lips frictioning back and forth. So
Wow.
even lifting their lip up when you're feeding and it tucks back in, that's just a really tight lip.
Interesting.
So that was my middle daughter. And
Okay.
I didn't know any better. And she got all the braces. And the minute the braces came off, the center teeth separated because that frenulum was still there. Nobody addressed it still at 30 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow. It affects teeth? Like
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. So my granddaughter is at 4 years old working on her airway because of her tongue and lip tie. She had a narrow airway. She started mouth breathing, snoring at 3.5. And we're addressing it now, which you can address her growth of her palate while she's growing. It's actually easier than doing it as an adult.
Okay.
Because they're growing.
And so this is genetic. So.
Yeah, strongly genetic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you recommend that a mom figures out if it's in her history or her husband's history before she gets like.
I think it's good to be aware of it.
Okay.
I think if I interview with a family ahead of time and I see the parents, I will mention it a little bit. What's your family history with breastfeeding? If you've had repetitive kids, multiple kids, your mom's experience, does she talk about that? Or I will say, you might have a baby that's tongue-tied because I'm seeing potentially both parents or one parent potentially has a tongue tie, and one parent will say, oh yeah, my mom said she never breastfeed. It was too painful, or they never gained weight, or depending what the story is. Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to go back and ask lots of questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know both of my sisters breastfed for a long time, so they didn't have those issues. But my mom has mentioned things about me not gaining weight. I remember. I wonder I have to ask her some questions now to figure that out exactly. I wonder if I was different than my sisters or if we were all like that.
It isn't just looking in the mouth and looking at the tongue. It's like symptomology. I mean, I just have got this created list of bing, 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 bing. Let's refer you to get assessed for that to make sure that that's not the contributing factor.
Okay.
Because sometimes it is.
Yeah.
And moms will go, oh my gosh.
And so you're saying like in about a month's time.
After 3 weeks, if post-revision, it's about 3 weeks of stretches.
Okay.
Breastfeeding oftentimes and some body work oftentimes is needed because they've been in this state for 9 months in utero with, all this tension. And so they have to work loosening it up so that it doesn't scar, and they learn how to use their tongue that's freed now.
Is there any fear of like their tongue
No.
like falling back? No.
I've heard a couple people say that here and there, but no.
Okay.
The exact opposite. It tends to come away from the airway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I always think it's like that's what's connecting it to your mouth.
It's connected to the floor of your mouth. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
All these things I feel like
know.
shoulda, coulda, woulda. I wish I would have known.
Well, I wish I'd known with a couple of my own kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I hope that there's no issues in the future now, especially because you don't know what type of tie
what ends
it
up is they can get palate expanders because they have a high palate when they do orthodontics, or their teeth are really crowded because the jaw never grew with the right tongue thrusts to grow the palate to allow space for the teeth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Gosh, just like this little thing can cause so much pain, especially with breastfeeding, because I do feel like that's the thing moms just want to do the most. And when this happens, we're broken. Like we are broken.
It's usually not a mom breast issue.
Yeah.
It's baby mechanics.
I remember thinking like, what's wrong with my nipples? Like, what's wrong with my milk? Like, and who knows? Maybe it was more of that than anything else.
Yep.
Crazy.
I had a sleep consultant with an 8-month-old down in Tacoma, and I was at the kitchen table, and the 2-year-old was jaw dropped watching TV, mouth breathing. And I said, let's talk about him for a second. And he was a poor sleeper. He had behavior issues. He was a mouth breather. He never breastfed well. He was totally tongue-tied. He had enlarged adenoids and tonsils from mouth breathing for years. And so, they addressed it and sleep improved. Wow. Yeah, just from that little conversation.
That's amazing.
I know.
But it's crazy that it took you and him he was 2, you said?
Yeah, he was between 2 and 3.
Like, why wouldn't somebody have caught it before
So
then?
I have the blessing of doing a study club with every other month with myofacial therapists and oral surgeons and orthodontists and pediatric dentists. So I've learned a lot from these people. And what I'm realizing is that science is ahead of actually conventional medicine practice. And there's going to be a new criteria coming out about how to really assess these kids.
Okay.
Like everything, science is always ahead of conventional medicine. So,
Yeah.
but I'm pretty passionate about it because I experienced it personally with my own kids
Yeah.
and grandkids. And if my clients are willing to listen and want to change things, I have resources for them. If they don't, then we go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just think about the stories it would change for moms,
Oh
right?
my gosh, the
And
before and after stories are just heartwarming.
yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And
I
I think that's
bet.
why I do it, because I see the beginning and I see the end and how breastfeeding was preserved and how anxiety went down and baby belly pain went down because they're not constantly gulping in a bunch of air with the mechanics of a tongue tie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So when you are doing postpartum support,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have, but what do you do when you have a mom who you know is experiencing postpartum depression?
I don't hesitate to say, let's talk about it,
Yeah.
because I don't want that elephant in the room that nobody's addressing.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if able to be interviewed while pregnant, I ask, do you have a history of any depression or anxiety that I need to know about? How can I support you? What information would you like if you feel like you're, out of control? How would you like your partner to help you, bring it up? So it's been talked about.
Yeah.
Resources.
I think that's like the biggest thing is just mentioning it, like talking about it.
Yeah.
And obviously you're a professional and you've been around it. So it's
Yeah.
easier for you to like ask certain questions or
Right.
talk about it. But I just feel like anybody just mentioning
Any partner just sees changes or already
Yeah.
knows their new mom partners has a history and things have escalated. Let's go talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
I think it's just the first thing is bringing it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I do think there's a lot of like, well, I don't want to get the medicine because then I can't breastfeed. And there's all these like these things that we just like say in our head
Yep.
versus like, we'll just talk about it because you actually don't even know
Sometimes
what
talk
it is.
therapy is enough. Sometimes it's nutritional.
Yeah.
There's research out there that talks about really good nutrition can help with anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And sleep.
Gosh, what you don't get.
Sleep. And that's where postpartum support is really important. Preserving the sleep so we don't spiral.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't stress it enough. Like having that support, having somebody like you come in, and even from like not even just the postpartum support, but like the consulting part of it. You talk about, and many people talk about how you have to train your baby to sleep. And
in the right place, in the right time.
And how do you know what that is?
Well,
as a mom,
that's the learning curve.
Yeah.
That's where you reach out and say, is it a sleep issue or is it a medical issue? And that's where you kind of decide, is it developmental behavioral or we still have underlying things going on like reflux, apnea, low iron, low calorie? I don't know. We have to talk about it.
Yeah.
That's why I don't jump into, let's just sleep train every baby. That's so not true. I don't want to feel bad if it didn't work.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to hate me because it didn't work.
Yeah.
If things aren't right, it does not go well.
Yeah.
There was one year, a few years ago, I had 5 boys all at the same time things were not clicking. I'm like, something's not right. 2 sets of twins and a singleton. And come to find out they were all low iron. And that affects sleep and naps and brain development too. So that's what the problem was.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Gosh, you're more than a sleep consultant. You're like a superhero.
An investigator. And I actually have to tell you, one of the twin dads was a dentist, and reflux meds, for moms out there, reflux meds can block iron absorption. And they don't tell you that at the pharmacy. He actually asked for the package insert. He's the one that taught me this. I always say parents teach me something every day.
Yeah.
And he said it can block nutrient absorption, and it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why his sets of twins had iron issues, because they were getting breast milk and formula, But that still doesn't even matter. It's just, you know, you could look at the pregnancy. If it's a low iron pregnancy, they may not get their stores.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
babies talk to us. We just need to figure that what they're telling us.
Yeah. It's like a new language we have to learn.
Yeah. And, you know, to make moms feel better, I raised 4 kids. They're great people. I survived it. I didn't know anything until I started doing this job.
Yeah.
I really feel like I lived on survival too.
Yeah.
You got through it.
Yeah.
But my clients have taught me so much today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know anything raising my kids either. It's true.
Yeah. Well, good to know because every day is a trial and error for me.
Yeah.
And it's hard because I'm in that stage where I want to give Grayson everything. And then I'm like, oh, crap. But when I give him that, he's a total jerk. And
He's
so
expecting it.
I can't give him that all the time.
Yep.
And so I have to balance that.
Yeah. Even my daughter has called me on, Mom, if you say yes, you'll be saying yes to that forever. Do you want to do that forever? I'm like, good point.
Yeah. It's hard. Especially as a grandparent, it's hard.
I know.
To say
You want to be
no.
indulgent, but it's like, she's right. I really shouldn't start this bad habit.
Yeah. Gosh, that is so funny. Okay, so when you do sleep train a baby, let's say we've ruled out medical, all that stuff. Is there a certain method that you use? Do you let the mom decide? Both?
Everything's always parent decision. I present the information. At the end of the day, I can coerce all I want, but if you're not on board, I am wasting my time.
What's your favorite sleep training method?
Right. So there's cried out, obvious description, time checks, obvious description, right? Come and go, tap in.
Yep.
I find that's actually more upsetting to a child. I have been using for the last 15 years and trained with Kim West, who wrote the book Good Night, Sleep Tight.
Okay.
It is child supported. You're with them the whole time, but every few days you're backing out in interventions. So gradually they're learning more independence with you present.
Okay.
As you're doing less and less over time.
So is that the one where you sit in the room as they fall asleep and you like physically back your chair out more and more every night, or your
very
seat
basic,
or
yes.
whatever? Okay.
But there's a lot more to it than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long does that take a child?
Depends
to
on
learn?
the age.
Okay.
If we have a bunch of bad habits and we have an older child, it can take longer. If we have, my specialty is 4 to 6 month olds if things are right. It does not mean we still don't feed at night, by the way, to the moms that are like, I don't want to sleep coach. I'm still breastfeeding. I totally respect and preserve breastfeeding. We just do it a little bit differently. If you've been the breastfeeding every hour throughout the night, mom's usually spent by 4 or 5 months and it doesn't usually work anime. I always say, it's time to coach when the more you're doing, the less it's working. It's time to visit if there's something going on. But, it's parents are with their kids, whether they're bed sharing or crib or mat on the floor, and we gradually allow the baby to learn more independence as part of the process.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
I use the cried out method.
Okay.
I did it twice, actually. I did it before I called you at 4 months, whatever. I tried. And it was awful. It lasted one time. Not even one time. I'm literally saying, we put Grayson down. He screamed. I went back in. I was like, I'm done. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think the lack of information, I'd rather see you, as I tell parents, I'd rather see you be doing, when we meet, I'd rather see you be doing everything wrong, but it's been consistent. Because that's easier to undo than try and stop and try this and stop that and try that and give in and give a bottle or whatever the it is. Because that teaches them to cry more. So once we start, I'm very, very upfront and very detailed. That's why the consultation's an hour and a half. So you really know who, what, where, when, why, and how. I give you every scenario so that when it's not that bad, you're going to go, it was better. I'm like, great.
Sure.
If you've got that personality where you've got that child that's really challenging, you're going to know that that's what's going to happen and this is what it's going to look like. And this is what the process tends to be. And then it tends to play out that way. And they're like, okay, it was still tough, but it's what I expected because you explained it and then it got better. Right. And then those parents will be told by their friends, it's going to be the hardest thing you're going to do for the first 3 to 5 days, but it pays off. Stick with it. So they're like hearing it from somebody else too, which is nice. Yeah.
Which is in turn why we ended up sleep training Grayson not until 10 months. Was because we had some friends who have a son who's just a few weeks older than Grayson.
Yeah.
And they were in town. Yeah. And we were doing our adult thing. And so it was time for the kids to go to bed. and their son just went to bed.
Yep.
Good night.
I've heard that story a couple times in my
Good
career.
bed. Yeah, good night. Go to bed. See ya. I mean, I actually don't even know if they had a baby monitor. Like they
Yeah.
were just like, whatever.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh gosh, in about 10 minutes, we're about to put Grayson down. And it's a very different experience because we
Yeah.
were in the like still bounce him to sleep,
Yeah.
slowly transition him to the crib, rub his back. Oh my gosh, it took us like a half an hour to put him down.
It's tough.
And we come back downstairs. Of course, they're like, we're going to be really honest with you. You need to not be doing what you just did. And you need to fix that. And so we were talking about sleep training and what that looks like. And then Grayson woke up because that's what he did. Every 20 minutes, he would wake up and we'd have to go do it again and do it again and do it again. And that was our life for a really long time. And then he also had to feed, and then he fed, and then he fed. And they were just kind of like, what do you do? What are you doing? And so it was the first time I was like, okay, I thought this was like just
Normal.
what it was supposed to be like. Like obviously I'm tired and Grayson doesn't sleep great, but I didn't know there was an alternative. I didn't know the grass was greener on the other side. And that was finally when I was like, cool. And so when I heard Grayson cry, which the cry it out method is what we ended up using later on. But man, I was like, go ahead, buddy, because mama's tired.
And you were ready though. See, that's the point right
Yes.
there. Is that I'm not here to push you or coerce you to do it.
Right.
You have to be ready because at the end of the day, it's yours to continue.
Yeah, because I remember, well, my husband was like, I can't listen to this. And I was like,
It's
well,
tough.
you go in the other room because I want to sleep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
bye. But I did. I made him go in the other room, and Grayson cried for like 45 minutes. And of course, we were doing like the check-in. It was getting longer and longer. And then he slept until 2 a.m. And I remember being like, yep, see you tomorrow night, same time, same place, because we're doing this again. And it took us a long time. It actually took us, people say a couple days, but it took us a couple weeks. And
I think they're not realistic in the couple days, even in the best of scenarios. I don't think that's fair.
it took us a while, but it got better.
Absolutely.
Like I saw results so quickly,
Yeah.
and I was ready. You're right.
Yeah.
I think that's my only thing I say to all moms. Like when you're ready, when your baby is ready and you're ready, it'll be a better transition.
When I started coaching, I thought I had to really promote and sell the benefits of why it's time to work on sleep. And then I'd have the occasional resistant mom or dad. I'm like, you're not ready. That's okay.
Yeah.
We're not going to coach. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have to push you into, nobody should be selling anybody on anything.
Yeah.
You got to want it more than I do.
Yeah.
Coaching, it doesn't matter what it is. When you're ready and you know that nobody's sleeping well, then everybody's ready.
Well, and that you know there's an alternative, right? Because I do think that there's a point in time when your services would be more of that support, right? Like when you come in, when you talk about your postpartum support, you're coming in to do all those things, like make sure the mom is sleeping, make sure feedings are going good.
Yeah.
Like there is a time when you don't sleep that much as a mom and you need your support during that time.
Yep.
And then there's the time when like, okay, you need to be sleeping more and so does your baby.
Yep.
And so now we need to sleep train or get on a schedule or
I'm
whatever
working
it
with
is.
a 4-month-old right now. Second time I've been with a family, and I planted the seed last week that he's getting ready. I can tell by the way he's waking up. And she was just kind of surprised.
Yeah.
And his sleep is starting to fall apart, waking up at more at night, which he hadn't been before. So
Yeah.
she was just kind of like, already?
Yeah. See, and I just think that that's something that's really important that we know. Like one, every baby is different,
For sure.
but also when we give advice to other moms, we have to be very careful because we don't, again, remember that time so well. And so when we say things like, oh, he should be on a schedule, or oh, he should be sleeping, oh, she should be doing this, it's kind of like, well, maybe not. There is a point in time when like the baby just doesn't sleep very good and you do have to feed a lot and it is interrupting your sleep.
There
and
are
all
medical
that.
reasons that things don't click and gel.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then there is a time when, okay, we need to get down to business and do something about this.
When I first started this, one of the biggest realizations that I hadn't thought about, of course, I don't sleep myself because I work all night with families. Moms would say to me, oh my gosh, they're happier, they're engaged, they're exploding in their milestones. They don't have a meltdown when I walk out of the living room. I'm like, that makes sense. They're rested, their nervous system's calm,
Yes.
they're in a good place. It's not a big event that they need to cling because they're so overtired.
Yeah.
I learned that just by clients saying, I didn't realize. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. I didn't realize it either.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah. When Grayson started sleeping through the night and bigger chunks and all that, when he was like 10 months old, I remember being like, oh, wow, like he's actually really fun and can we can hang out, we can go to the park, we can do all these things.
Yep.
And it's not like a ticking time bomb of like when he's upset, because that's what it was like before, where he would just like, I mean, he's a good baby. My mom was always like, he's a really good baby. Don't say that. You're going to jinx yourself. So I'll be very careful. But there were times I didn't know he was going to like explode. And it was all just because he was so tired. And he didn't know the napping wasn't good. And all that stuff spirals out of control when you don't sleep well at night.
It's true. And the thing that I started seeing babies improve upon is just their placid face, because they were chronically tired. They're just kind of in a vegetative state. And I'm like, that's how I feel because I work so much at night. Don't sleep great during the day. They started getting good sleep and they're like happy and engaged. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is that baby. Yeah.
Yeah. Sleep. It's such a big thing.
It's huge. Science, hands down, says how important it is.
Yeah.
For brain cleansing and development. And
yeah. That's why you need support after you have the baby.
Yeah.
You need to ask for help.
For sure.
And you have to train your baby in some capacity. I think that's
eventually
the thing I want all moms to know. I know you're going to give some advice, and I'm not really the expert in sleep by any means, but like, I know that sleep training sounds hard, or it sounds, scary, or, you don't want to be mean, or whatever method you decide to use. But gosh, like, it's good for the baby, and it's so good for you too, because you just you got to sleep. Yeah. And your baby's got to sleep.
Yeah.
It'll change your life.
For sure. And the whole coach and training from birth, you can set up good habits and good patterns and good skills that can lead you in a good direction, like feeding well during the day, every so many pattern hours, every 2.5 to 3 hours. We don't want a 5-hour nap during the day, because guess what they're going to do all night?
Stay up.
They're going to eat all night.
Yeah.
Right? So you want to flip the 5 hours to be at nighttime. So those little simple tricks can help pay off with the long-term bigger picture later on.
Yeah. Well, and just even knowing that those exist, right? Like when you talk about your support, your postpartum support, like having somebody there, an expert who's clear-headed, has not just had a baby, has not just been sleep deprived, telling you like, okay, your baby's going to go through this time where there's nighttime and daytime, and giving you like the logical, like informational pamphlet right there in front of you, versus like looking it up online, hearing it from a friend, reading it in a book. Like that's just a lot kind of coming at you with all these different opinions and ways that people did it. And
sometimes there's a lot going on at the very beginning, like the feeding issues, and that's not the time to have that conversation.
Yeah.
It's not settled enough to even think about that yet.
Sure.
We're just trying to get a baby to gain their weight back.
Yeah, it's survival mode.
Yeah.
But doing it with somebody.
Yeah.
Versus alone.
It can definitely be helpful.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a lot of money, you can, an hour or two of a conversation or some informational support, if you're ready to receive it, can go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and if you find yourself in that position, I think finding places that offer help is so important in that, because obviously I talked to you about Momma Fund, but nonprofit organizations or support groups or PEPs or all these places
Totally agree.
where people there is support, right? It's just, you got to know about it.
Right.
And you got to reach out and ask.
Yep, for sure.
So finding it for a friend who is struggling, or finding it for yourself, is so important.
For sure.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for all your time talking to us about grandma stuff and all things sleep.
It was fun to hear
and
back
all
from
that.
you again.
Yes. Yeah. And making your way all the way out here to me.
It was a
dealing
journey.
With fairies
It was an adventure.
And all that. Yeah. Okay. What is one thing when it comes to all this stuff that we've talked about today? What's the one thing you want moms to take away? One piece of advice.
I can't give just one piece.
You can give as much as you want.
I think one of the biggest thing this generation is we're losing our maternal instincts to listen to what our gut tells us is something that our child needs. We trust the professionals more than we trust ourselves and our instincts. I think we need to go back to listening to ourselves.
Okay.
And then if you need help and ask questions, great. But at the end of the day, you're the only one that's with them 24 hours a day, not the professionals.
Do you find that when moms do a lot of research online too, that's hindering
They get overwhelmed.
Okay.
Like one of the questions I asked is what sleep books, or the moms that have read every single book still go, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And every method works. It's about consistency, right? So going with your instincts, finding the balance for your family, really supporting your relationship so you can be there for your children. Yeah. Going on a date. That's really important to sustain your marriage and your relationships so you can parent happily.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think the ask for help is so big.
It's hard sometimes.
It's hard. Well, because you feel like a bad mom if you ask for help.
It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Everybody needs a break.
Yeah. I read this really great article the other day, which of course I'm going to forget where and exactly who wrote it and all the good things I probably should say. But it was basically this mom that was like, you know, ask me for sunscreen, ask me for an extra wipe, ask me for snacks, ask me for all these things, because I wish I would have asked in those times was kind of like the gist. And I thought, gosh, it is so true. Like, I mean, sometimes my diaper bag is packed full of things, and sometimes I've forgotten something. And I hope that a mom who's in either of those situations will ask or will offer or would be happy to offer.
Absolutely.
You know, like we're all just in this
self worlds.
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And like we were worried that this mom's going to think we're a bad mom, and so we can't ask, or this person's going to think we're can't handle this. And it's just, like, just ask.
Be human and be present.
Yeah.
And be outside of our stressors in our lives. When you serve others, it actually makes yourself happier, even if it is giving the diaper wipes that the other person forgot and you have plenty in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sure. Always. Just ask.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, Marianne, I cannot thank you enough.
My pleasure. And
for those of you that want more information on Marianne, or any way that you can get in contact with her, you can find all the information in the details below this podcast.
Thanks for having me. It was nice to finally meet you.
Yes.
I remember our conversation a while back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I realized you moved.
I did. All the way to Bremerton, just
all
so you
way.
could take a ferry to come see me.
I needed the break.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. I hope you loved it. Please subscribe to this podcast so you can get the latest episodes, and tell us what you think about it in the reviews. And mamas, I love you.